and welcome to ShowPod. I'm Mr. P with Mr. Dave and Mr. Jethro. Today we're going to be talking about, and this is kind of a long intro really, because it's not just computer games, it's not just films or TV shows, it's the whole interchangeable way in which they sit. Yeah. So TV and films that have become computer games, or computer games that have become TV and films.
Yes.
You know what I mean? TV shows and films.
It can swing either way, can't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the ever-swinging pendulum of that was going to be profound, but I would not planned it and it ran away from me.
Never mind.
So yeah. Now, I do play a few computer games. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, we regularly jump on, say, Fortnite. And we use that really as a meeting place to get on and talk about stuff that we're going to do, projects we're doing.
All kinds of things. Really,
yeah.
The second boardroom.
The second boardroom, yes. The first boardroom, the pub, of course, is all. Yeah. The second boardroom is obviously running around the island on Fortnite so we can talk to each other remotely. Why go on Zoom when you can run around on Fortnite?
Yeah, have fun and kill people
children
at the same time.
Oh. Yeah. There are many people that play Fortnite, in fact, like us. You know.
So it's very much so.
Yeah. It's not just children.
Yeah, it's not just a kids' game.
No.
It's a big kids' game too.
Yes.
Did you know, in terms of video games, the average age that people play is 35?
Is that right? I didn't know that. I can believe it.
Yeah.
But you look at the demographic now, though, of people that play video games, like you said. Go back to, say, the 90s, right? The 90s were when computer games sort of went like that and jumped up a level. Because you had all the 80s, and I'm going to say that I don't think it's in a derogatory way, but like console games where they were very 2D, very blocky. Then they jumped up to the more, not quite 3D, but adventure type games in the 90s. Then as you jumped up into the 2000s, you got a lot more shoot 'em ups, and you know there was a lot more action and adventure in them. And we've been brought up. I say we. I'm wrapping you into this, Jethro. You're a little bit younger than we are, but we were brought up as the games have evolved. We've evolved with them.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
You know, never back in like the early 90s would you think of having like a GTA 6
No.
with like all of the things that it looks like it's going to have because it looks immense.
But then again, we've kind of grown up through this development, haven't we? So I think we talked about originally when we did our website profiles. I started off on like text adventure games on, you know, like micros and BBC micros and the Acorns and all that.
Bowl.
So they were very basic, and the computer sort of stuff has been good and cutting edge at the point as to where it was.
Yeah.
But like you say, if you look back now, it's completely a whole different ball game, isn't it?
I think also it comes to, I mean, we'll come back to the main topic in a minute. We've kind of gone off on a subtopic, but it comes to money as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that are average age 35 are now in a position where they can buy PCs to game on or consoles to game on.
True.
They can go out and buy the latest releases. When you're like 12 or 15 or whatever, you haven't got 50 quid you can just drop on a game and it's fine.
That's right.
You know.
You're not doing that on pocket money, are you?
No.
Not really.
Just get mum's credit card and...
Yeah. Please get the
kids,
permission first.
Kids, if you're watching, don't just steal mummy's credit card. That's not good.
We're not saying to do that.
No.
We know the average person that plays them, but what are they playing? That's the big thing. So, I mean, just to name a couple that we're obviously going to perhaps talk about. I'm not like a massive gamer. Like I say, Fortnite, obviously, we jump on. Yeah. And I've played some of the free online games, Star Wars, Star Trek Online, obviously. And a little bit.
But you do that because of Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah,
if they
like
didn't have that, you probably wouldn't play them, would you?
No, you have to like that to play it, don't you? Rather than something a bit more like what's on the list here, like Tomb Raider, which was, you know, where anyone could dip into that adventure and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And originally developed in my hometown as well.
Is that right?
Derby by Core Design.
Is there a street in Derby called
Lara Croft Way?
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
There is that as well.
Perfect.
And there's a plethora of those. And I mean, you know, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Super Mario Brothers, Sonic. I mean, the Sonic films were really, really good. Even I enjoyed the Sonic films. I'm not really that into Sonic, really. But
was that the 2020?
Yes, and the 22 sequel. I glanced down there because I didn't know the date, so thanks for the notes there, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, it went through a bit of a redevelopment, didn't it? Because I remember when there was a big hoo-ha when the first initial shots for production came out of what it was going to look like and everything. There was a lot of people like not liking it, and they had to go back and do a whole redesign to kind of get the aesthetics of it right.
Because the internet bullied them into submission.
Yeah, pretty much. And because they needed to get it right for that core audience, because they had to rely on them for definite guaranteed sales, it was worth them going back and rehashing it and getting it right. And like you say, well, eventually when it came out, it did reasonably well, and they ended up doing a sequel.
It's one of those, from someone that's not a massive big Sonic fan anyway, but I've seen the films, I think it's one of those where you may not necessarily pick to watch it, but if you do watch it, or someone's watching it, or someone makes you watch it, you then really like it.
Yeah.
And so the second one you actually want to watch. So, my ex made me watch, not made me, but wanted to watch the first one. So we watched the first one because she wanted to go and watch the second one at the cinema.
Yeah.
But I would have watched the second one regardless because I enjoyed the first one, and obviously the second one's going to be, you would like to think, as good.
Yeah.
Street Fighter, not so much. Mortal Kombat, I don't know. You guys can talk about that in a moment. Just another one, big one, just I know, just so we talk about it in a minute, is obviously The Witcher.
Yeah, a very big one.
Henry Cavill was obviously Geralt in Series 1 to visit 3.
Yeah.
And then we've got Liam Hemsworth
taking over season 4, haven't we?
The imagery for that, by the way, looks all right so far that we've seen.
Yeah.
They've not released too much about it, but I'm sure we've seen a still.
I do okay. I think it's certainly up there amongst one of the more successful adaptations, isn't it, The Witcher?
Well, I think that part of that is because Henry Cavill is a big geek anyway. You know, he'd much rather stay at home playing World of Warcraft or whatever than being out in the real world. And quite frankly, we relate to that very well. So he, being a big fan of The Witcher, obviously brought some of that knowledge to that project.
Yeah, of course.
He would, I assume, if something's not right, he would say, "Oh, you can't have that."
Yeah, apparently it was a bane in a lot of the producers. A bane of their lives, where it was just like, no, you can't do that. That's not game accurate.
And to be fair, how successful is the franchise?
Yeah, it's been very successful, hasn't it?
You know, it's like a recipe. You get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And now he's gone on to do, is it Warhammer 40k?
Yes.
Yeah, he's working on that at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, which, again, he's a big fan of Warhammer too. So, he paints and model figures and things.
Yeah.
So,
quite likely he'll make a success of that as well, isn't it?
I don't think there's anything he's going to do where he doesn't make a success of it, really. I mean, he's Superman.
So something else to consider is films that have been adaptations of video games typically haven't been that successful. They've been middling, sort of this isn't too good. I mean, you have Lara Croft films, which were I mean, it's been so long since I've seen them, but the ones with Angelina Jolie, they were okay. Hitman had a film adaptation that sort of fell flat.
Well, it's had like 3 or whatever. Timothy Olyphant, I did like that one. No, that was
2015. Did it come out?
Yeah, I forget which years. I mean, I liked all of the ones I've seen. But I'm quite a bit of a fan of Timothy
That's the type of game, though, that you would imagine would make a good movie, a good TV series.
Yeah.
It's kind of like assassins and hitmen and criminal underworld and all that sort of thing.
And the games themselves, they have a story in them. Even though you can play the levels individually, devoid of the context of the rest of the game, there is that connective tissue. And
I mean, is it that it's too loosely based on the games? Maybe they've not gone all in with it like they have with other projects that have been successful. Is it kind of more in the basket with the 93 Super Mario Brothers, where there was not a lot that was too much to do with the games? I think sometimes if they perhaps don't use some of that creativity and material from the games, does that kind of put the movie on a wrong footing.
Possibly, and we have had things in the past where creatives have, when they've been assigned to make an adaptation, they then talk negatively about the medium of gaming, which is like, then why are you here to adapt it if you don't like gaming?
But then it's a fine line, isn't it? When they do really stick to the game and try and be faithful. You can do too much of that, like the original Mortal Kombat, which had a lot of stuff from the game in it, had all the main characters you would expect in it. They tried to do what the special effects, what they thought would be right to match the game, and it didn't. Although it's achieved like a cult classic status now, it was one of them at the time that didn't do that well. But I think the heart was in the right place, and they were trying to make a film that was faithful to the game.
So, and it's interesting that. Do you think some properties are just like better suited for the medium of film and TV compared to others? Because we talk about gaming. We talk about gaming, and first and foremost with gaming, it's the gameplay that you look at.
Yeah.
Story is secondary. With film and TV, story is first. So if the game doesn't have that good of a story, or if the story is just a bit weak and it's just set dressing, then
it's got to have some meat to it, hasn't it? There's got to be a bit of an existing world there and a good set of interesting characters and a good bit of backstory for them to work from, I think, hasn't it?
For sure. And I guess the other thing is that with film and TV, you're watching a story from like a third-person perspective.
Yeah.
With games, usually, it's a first-person perspective. But you are the main character.
You're playing in that world, aren't you?
Yes, it's a very subjective experience. So, I don't know, does that not also have an effect? You rarely see things, aside from cutscenes, you rarely see things that your character doesn't see.
Yeah, I think the best way of doing it, as kind of I've seen from my opinion from watching some of these things over the years, is that if they have like the strong foundation from the game, and then they've got good writers, good director involved, and they can build on top of that, and like you say, flesh it out and add a few things to it that fit with the original, then I think that's a good, successful way of doing it, of putting one of these things together.
Do you think the industry's learned? Because we're talking about a few projects there that are a little bit older now. So you bring it a little bit more up to date with Sonic, for example. I know that's not dead current, but I mean the sequel was only like last year or the year before.
Well, there's a Knuckles series.
Sorry?
There's a Knuckles series.
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
So
but the quality of those projects are a lot more now. There's a lot more money in them. You look at Halo. This is where I want to go next. The TV series Halo. Yeah. So the second series of that has just dropped.
On about the 5th or 6th episode of the second series, I think.
I've only seen little bits and pieces of the first series.
Yeah.
But production-wise,
very good. Yeah.
And obviously it's so popular and so successful.
Yeah.
But is it so successful because, excuse me, the production is so good?
I think
we talk about things, don't we? When we watch TV shows, it's very 90s. And we don't really mean that in a derogatory way too much. What
it's just what you recognise.
It's that feel,
style,
the way they dress, but it's the cameras they used, and you might get important to this. It's the type of lenses they used at the time, the lighting they always went for, because that's what they had.
Yeah.
The sound was always the same.
It's like the X-Files. Like the reboot just doesn't feel anything like the old ones.
All the old cameras out. Let's go on those.
And now a word about our sponsor. Are you looking to take your business or idea online? Then Namespace has you covered. From personal websites, e-commerce and fully managed IT services, see what Namespace can do for you today at namespace.rocks.
I think, you can get up against problems when you're trying to do these adaptations. But I think I said to you the other day with the Halo one, it's got that nice level balance of it's reasonably faithful to the game and the established world that's already there, but they've fleshed it out.
They built on it.
They're built on that, but not in a way that's going to annoy people and say that doesn't make sense or that doesn't fit. And they've not altered major things that people would have outcry about because they've changed something core that's now different. And I think that's why they've got the best of both worlds. They've got the fans of the game series are watching it, and sci-fi action general fans watching it, and that again ups your viewing figures, allows you to put more money into making it, attracts better talent to come and star in it as well.
I think I'm right in saying that it's easier to take a computer game and extrapolate that out into a film or a TV show, because you can be more creative and do more with it. I would say it was more difficult to do it the other way around, because you've only got, maybe, but I only say that because you have to work out, right, you're doing a game, how many levels are you going to have, for example? So it's like you have 20 levels. So then you take a project and you say, right, we're going to make a game out of it. Let's say it's a go through the levels game. It's not like an open world game. Just go through the levels and complete the game. Okay. So not like Star Trek Online or anything like that that's open and they can keep adding more to it. Although that's an big expansive world anyway. Just take a silly film from take The Mask, right? The film with Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah.
You make that into a computer game. I don't think it is. If you make it into a game, the point is he has to get the mask. I assume he's got to complete these missions and then maybe get rid of the mask or whatever.
Yeah.
You're kind of constricted to that kind of, if you're following the film, you've already got the route planned out. Now, I get that doesn't always make it negative, and I'll give you one example. GoldenEye. So way back like 95, GoldenEye came out. I think it was 95. And it was just, everybody bought it. Even now, people still play that version of that game.
Yeah.
Because it's so popular. Most people that love it have got emulators and they're playing it on whatever.
Yeah, I've even got it now on Xbox.
Oh,
Still,
nice.
I jump into it and play it every so often.
And you're going to go to the dam. You're going to do that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the beginning, you follow those steps all the way through. You're going to end up on the dish. In this particular instance, it doesn't ruin it. But I would say that it's harder to do it that way. Because you can, I suppose in that one, you can veer off and do slightly different things. You don't have to follow the exact footsteps that Pierce Brosnan's character took in that film. The majority of the route's already planned out.
Yeah.
And I think for some projects, that wouldn't work.
I mean, I remember back in the probably mid-90s-ish, they developed Michael Jackson's Thriller into a computer game.
What? Did they?
Did you not know that? That was kind of very, very, very loosely based around that. You could do some of the dance moves and stuff to kill your enemies.
Hang on. Did some game developer get drunk one night in the boardroom and say, how can we make this game really popular? It doesn't really fit anywhere. I know. We'll just stick Michael Jackson in it, say it's a thriller game, and it'll sell lots of copies.
Yeah, Michael Jackson's popular.
We'll use him.
It sold plenty of copies, and then it got a bit panned.
Right.
It wasn't great, and like you say, that goes from the thing that you said, from like getting something that's not got a lot of meat on it, that's not got a lot in the beginning to put into a film or a TV series, and back the other way, there's not a lot to put into a game. But it also brings me back to like back in the day when they made the Indiana Jones computer games. The first computer adaptations then, and they were making the game as the film was in production.
Yeah.
So they hadn't even got a lot of like what the complete story was, what the characters looked like. And you had a lot of like hilarious moments where they were like wearing something completely different from in the film, or they used a weapon that was different to what they used in the film. Or
I suppose you can let them off that because that they didn't have that source material to work with, and it was that time where, and I remember it was like when PCs started to get better. I use that term loosely, but at the time.
Because back in the day they couldn't really run the
Indiana Jones games were very much in the same ilk as like your Monkey Island.
Yeah.
Almost. It was almost point and press, wasn't it? It was click and whatever.
They had some of those. Obviously, on some of the other platforms, they had it as a platforming game. And obviously on the very early ones, like on the old Ataris and stuff, it was very blocky and very basic characters and things moving around. So it was only very loosely based on the film IP. We've had a lot of those where it's gone the other way and it just hasn't worked at all, where they've tried to take a TV series or a film property and make it into a video game.
Some examples are so Alien Resurrection. The film came out in 1997, and there was supposed to be a PS1 tie-in game. It had a trouble production. It finally came out, I think, 2001. And at the time, it was absolutely panned for its dual stick control. How one of them controlled the position in which you like look and aim, and the other one changed your how you move. Now, back in the day, that was like absolutely unheard of. Now that's the
Every
norm.
single game,
Yes.
that's standard practice.
So you have little things like that where games like I don't know, Alien Resurrection are deemed as one of the most influential games on modern FPS shooters.
Right, yeah.
Even though it had a trouble production and it was basically a video game film tie-in, just to cash in some money. But if you want to be cynical about it, but there's definitely a place for that in gaming history. And even if you want to look in that time period, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, as it was called, because Americans apparently didn't know what a philosopher was. But the PS1 game...
I could say something. I won't.
That's a whole other episode, isn't it? Different movie titles in different countries.
PS1 game was one of the most popular games at the time. Like, I think it was definitely in the top 5 of ones being sold in 2001. But
I'm not surprised though. It was a massive franchise.
yeah, especially when it first came out as well, which is
big when it first came out. It came on the back though of all the books. I mean, whenever we talked about books so far, we talked about TV shows and films, but the books were so massive.
yeah.
The film was going to be a
People
success.
queuing outside Waterstones at 6 in the morning to like when they went on sale and things like that.
And of course there is going to be a video game tie-in. But an interesting little tidbit with that is that they had a lot of the pictures from production and like what characters would look like, but they didn't have any samples of the music. So they had to come up with their own theme for it. So you open it up and you're like, this isn't a Harry Potter theme, but it sounds very, very like similar, like the Harry Potter theme from Wish, almost. But yeah, it's interesting how like two people who didn't really have contact with each other making a theme for a similar IP or a similar product, coming up with something similar.
It's interesting that I don't know. Maybe it's the way that the books were written, and you get that. You immerse yourself, and it just I don't know. Like not so much music, but like the casting, for example, for Harry Potter. When I read the books, the actual casting was very similar to what I had in my head. You know, they really did get lucky with the. Well, they didn't get lucky, did they? It was a process, but it was very close to what I had in my mind.
People doing the
Very
casting
well cast.
knew
The
what they were
writing
doing.
was so well done that you got that world in your head, and when it went to the big screen, obviously with J.K. Rowling having a hand in overseeing it, how it looked, it's going to look similar, isn't it?
And of course, we've had the Hogwarts Legacy game. haven't
Yes, I was just about to
Come
say
out in the
that's
last couple of years.
come out, and just recently getting a bit more online presence as
we? Yeah,
well.
yeah. People are starting to get it now. It's
Yeah.
come down in price, and people have got easier access to it.
It actually looks all right. Actually,
I'd like to give it a go.
and again, what they've done with that is, in terms of getting it so that you're not copying and repeating yourself.
Yeah.
Although it's at Hogwarts, they've set it back in time, so it's like in 18 something. It's in the 1800s at Hogwarts. So when you're in the wizarding world, it doesn't really make it much difference because the wizarding world doesn't really have technology because it's got magic.
Yeah.
So if you didn't realise the uniforms were just a little bit tweaked because they were a lot older, at a quick glance you'd think it was just current day, but it's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very true. I suppose we ought to mention one of the recent successes. Obviously, we've had The Last of Us
Yes, of
on
course.
Sky, which has done really well and been kind of lauded as a really good adaptation of the original 2013 video game. I mean, I don't know loads about it because I've not really played those games, but I know how I regarded they are, and it seems as though the TV series has carried on that, and people seem to be saying it's quite a faithful adaptation, and they like the way that they've gone with it.
That is interesting because in terms of gaming, that game is very heavy on the cutscene. Like if you were to have like an arbitrary spectrum of video games from very cinematic to not cinematic at all, Last of Us will be on the very cinematic side because it is, especially how it's told. It's heavy use of cutscenes and it's like linear storyline as well. It's almost like it's made for it.
So it's already well suited to move into television or...
Yeah, so maybe that's an answer to the question. But
yeah, could well be that if you've got that kind of cinematic storytelling within a game, then you've kind of already got that to go from, and those characters defined a bit better than what they'd be in other games.
I think as time's gone on, the synergy between all of these things is a lot more in pace with each other. It's a lot better. The transference from one to another, I think, is getting a lot better. Because we talked about ones that haven't really worked. We talked about an odd one that really does work. But nowadays, there's not very many that don't really work. Because, let's face it, there's so much money in it now that you can't afford to really make it wrong. So you've got to pick the IP that you're going to use, and it has to be one that's going to really pop and work. And it's got to be cost effective. That's the other thing. You've got to make these games if you're doing it from a TV show. And obviously, if you're making a TV show, that's a lot more money from a game. It's not like back in the day, things were a lot cheaper to make. And if it didn't really sell, it doesn't matter. You've got the internet now, social media, which was not a big thing way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was around, but it wasn't massive. So you could afford to do things, and things that slip under the radar if it wasn't too good. You put something out now that's absolutely rubbish, old people will tell you.
Oh yeah, you'll find out quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, another one they've tried a few times. They did. They've tried recently was Resident Evil.
Yes.
Obviously, the original game came out in '96, very very popular. Spawned a lot of sequels and spin-offs. And we had the movie with Mila Jovovich, and I think, didn't we, way back when, which was all right, but didn't go probably quite as well as they hoped, but it was still a decent enough movie. And I think they're in the second season of the American TV series version of it now. Whether they're going to make any more, I don't know, but it seems as though it's kind of plateaued. It's done reasonably well. It's done enough, but it's not been exceptional.
Is that one of those shows where you'll get people that find the show on some kind of streaming medium and don't realise it was a computer game?
Yeah.
So they'll watch the show and really enjoy it. Maybe even get halfway through series 2 before one of the mates at the pub says, "Oh, that's based on that computer game." Was it? And then will that make them go then and actually buy the computer game?
Maybe.
I mean, the Resident Evil, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that had a bit more of an anthology spin on it, where each individual game had its own story, sort of like, I don't know, GTA or something, where there's no real link between them, but just like the theme and the vibe and the genre. So, again, that probably makes it even easier to jump in.
Yeah,
At,
and I think
number 8 or
I
number
think
9
as
or whatever it
well,
is.
they've probably got to be careful to not go for a video game that's too niche, that's too old, or not well known enough, because you're not going to bring in those core fans of the original IP, like they've done with Halo, like they've done with Castlevania, like they've done with The Last of Us, and presumably.
Or even Super Mario.
Yeah,
films.
Super Mario to an extent. You had that core audience and the general audience as well coming into it. But if you make something too niche, something not well enough known, then it's probably halfway to failing already.
True. So,
Unless they do really, really well with it and it stands on its own as its own thing.
We're going to talk about one of those projects in a short while. But before we do that, let's bring in our feature, because we like this. So this is our Geeky Guys Did You Know, where we pull out some trivia from our brains.
Our brains?
Yeah, we've got brains.
Oh.
Do you remember that thing we gave you earlier out of that box we keep on the shelf in the office? No?
No, I don't know.
It's like a grey thing with lots of dust on it. We don't really use it very often.
Yeah, that explains
Anyway,
it, yeah.
it's that time. Now, I don't have any trivia for Did You Know, because, to be honest, this sort of topic's not something that I know too much about. But I have got one, and I'm going to do it right at the end as a link to lead us into the next bit. Watch for the link later on. So, yes, let's see what you've got then for our Geeky Guys Did You Know?
Who wants to go first?
Go on then, Jethro, I'll let you go first.
Okay. All right. With the Half-Life series, which is like very linear and like, I guess like very subjective point of view from our main characters, the guy who's not really the antagonist, but sort of like the mystery guy, the G-Man, who's been subject of all these like memes and like speculation of like what's his true origin throughout all the official games. His screen time tots up to about 15 minutes.
15
minutes. Which is...
How long's Half-Life been going?
Since 1998.
Right, okay. The thing is though, have they made Half-Life as a TV show?
No.
Or a film? Right. So if they did, this is why I'm not doing trivia, 'cause I don't know. If they do that and you audition for that, you want that character. Because you know that they could got a whole backstory that they can bring up now that's not written.
Oh yeah.
So that character is solid gold because you exist through all of it. So you've got longevity, and they can make up what they want for your backstory.
Or they can keep it a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they do adapt it, then it would be really interesting to see what they do with it. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I found that interesting.
What's your second piece of trivia, Mr. Jethro?
Second piece of trivia. In terms of video games with gore and that, a lot of games would do research into like real like human accidents and like how the body would respond to certain injuries.
Sorry, I was smiling quite weirdly there while you're talking about injuries, only because you mentioned this to me the other day. So I know what you're going to say.
Even some of the textures that they used were from actual medical textbooks of like burns and like all this horrible stuff, and it ended up giving a lot of game developers PTSD because of it, like repeated exposure to that they're not really used to. And what they did, what they've done since is one technique they use is to overlay the existing textures with loft insulation and potato skins, just to make it look sort of like gored and messed up, and then like change the colour as well. So there's a bit of trivia for you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That I'm not surprised that they look at the kind of real world stuff to make it as realistic as possible.
Problem in any job where you're looking at something that's very uncomfortable or not very pleasant, whether it is to do with the medical side or whether it's the crime side, you do have to feel for those people that have to look at that kind of thing all day, every day. That's part of their job, and just silly things like I suppose if you like, I don't know, you like web monitors, that kind of thing, where you're constantly having to look at through trials, loads and loads and loads of websites that probably aren't as savoury as we'd like to promote on this channel. You're looking at that stuff all the time. It's got to grind you down a little bit.
Yeah, someone has to do it.
Yeah.
So more power to them. But yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
So, Mr.
Go to
Dave.
me.
Yes.
My tidbits of trivia are about the same franchise. So the Castlevania series that we mentioned briefly earlier, first one came out in 2017, starring the lead character from the game. It was based on called Trevor Belmont, and it was about him and his family's battle against vampires. But they actually based the series on Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. So they didn't really focus much on like the first couple in the series, which you'd perhaps expect when they were starting a TV series. But because the material was much better in that game, that's the one that they based it on.
suppose that leads back into what we were saying earlier
Yeah.
about you've got to pick the right bit
Yeah.
to make it popular.
And like we said on some of the others, they used what was there and they built around it in a common sense way. And I mean, there's even like bits during the series. They had a couple of seasons that 3 seasons actually it ran for, and I think they didn't bring in like the recognisable music from the game until about halfway through the 2nd season, and you had that payoff with it in like a big battle. So they didn't like throw it in your face like all the stuff from the game. It was just there was nice little Easter eggs at the right time in certain
Those
episodes.
true fans of the game are sat
Yeah.
there, and all of a sudden it's like, I know that.
Yeah, it's like when you're watching a newer Batman film and then the '89 Batman theme comes
Well,
in.
we talked about
Yeah.
this with Justice League, didn't we?
Yeah.
And there was that in. There was the Wonder Woman score, the original. There was
Yeah.
a little bit of the Superman theme, the John Williams, just in the battle sequence. It just started
Yeah.
with the and you're there in the cinema going,
Yeah, it was that. The second piece of trivia, when they came to do the next series of Castlevania, they changed one of the showrunners, and they decided not to do a season 4 and carry on the story from where they was at in season 3, but they jumped sort of like 20, 30 years forward. So the series that's just finished, which is Castlevania Nocturne, which came out last year, is now focusing on Richter Belmont, which is Trevor Belmont's like great-great-grandson. So we're looking like years in the future, and there's only sort of one of the characters from the previous 3 series that's been brought forward into that one. So it's kind of like you've got to get used to a whole new
that's
cast,
interesting.
slightly different setting.
What was the reason behind that, though? I mean, did the first 2 not really do as well as they
Well,
thought?
I think they did, but I think that they thought
Keep it
3
fresh.
seasons on this particular point
Yeah.
in the Belmont history is probably enough,
Yeah.
and we need to change it up, otherwise it will get too stale or get a bit boring. There'll be too much filler chucked in.
Okay.
So I say they went on to Richter Belmont, and that was based around a slightly later game from Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was on the Super Nintendo. So that series is kind of based around his character, and they've taken stuff from that game to do this season. And it sounds like they're going to do another continuing season going forward. So that they've done 3 on one character, and they're going to be doing 2 on this other one. Whether they do any more, I don't know. But yeah, that's where they've based them from and how that's progressed.
It's time to find out who is the geeky mastermind of the whole universe in the biggest possible geeky quiz online, which is where Mr. Jethro asks myself and Mr. Dave geeky questions to find out who can answer the most questions. So, are we ready?
Yeah,
Let's
to
jump
it.
into this episode's geeky quiz.
Are we ready, gentlemen?
We are ready.
I think we're ready for another one.
Yes, let's do it.
What was the first English language video game film adaptation?
Super Mario Brothers.
Correct. Alright, question number 2. What was the original name of Deep Space Nine?
No.
Correct. What is, as of recording, the best-selling video game?
Sonic?
Incorrect.
Resident Evil.
Incorrect.
Is it a free-for-all now?
If you want to try again.
Tomb Raider.
Incorrect.
Snake?
No.
Zelda.
Nope. No, do you want me to say?
Go on, put us out of a misery.
Minecraft.
Minecraft?
Really?
I wouldn't have thought Minecraft.
Something like 300 million copies sold.
Huh.
I mean, that's rubbish as well.
You can't say that. People like it.
Well, each to their own, I suppose, isn't it?
What was the first GTA game to have a voiced protagonist?
GTA 3.
Incorrect.
Vice City.
Correct. Question number 5. Which was released first, Spyro or Crash Bandicoot? Dave.
Crash Bandicoot.
Correct. Question number 6. In what year was the original Doom released? Yeah.
1992.
96.
93. Mr. P gets that. Question number 7. Which deck is engineering on the Enterprise D?
God, I knew this. And I'm torn because I forgot. My brain's doubting myself. 36.
Correct.
Ooh.
That would have been, oh, I'd have had letters.
Question number 8. Who directed Rogue One?
Rian Johnson.
Incorrect.
I was going to say that, but he did the other one from the other 3, the one that nobody likes. Can I say that? I'll just chuck J.J. Abrams in there. I don't think it was him that did Rogue One, was it?
It was incorrect. It's Gareth Edwards. Question number 9. When was Half-Life 3 released?
Half-Life 3.
2002.
Nope.
2000.
Buzzer?
Well, there's no one else here. 2000.
It's a trick question because they never made it.
Oh, come on!
And question number 10. Where is RoboCop set?
Detroit.
Correct. That means Mr. Dave has 3, Mr. P has 4.
Ooh, very close win for Mr. P there.
It's funny because that put me off completely. Because although it's set in Detroit, they filmed it, a lot of it in, was it somewhere in Texas or somewhere? It was somewhere weird. You wouldn't think it's Texas, isn't it? A lot of the filming location in Texas. And so that was in my head because I've been looking filming locations up recently. Because, that's what we do in our spare time. We look up all this kind of stuff because you never know what Jethro's going to throw at you.
Exactly. Need to know these things.
Well, Mr. Dave,
That was a close one,
it was
wasn't
close. Fourth, I only just got there.
Barbie.
Is it just me? Or, we had this idea. We had production meetings for this show pod, and we said, "Let's do a geeky quiz. Jethro can ask the questions." And we thought it'll be easy. We'll get loads.
Yeah, it's
We're
not
rubbish, aren't we?
It's either the questions are terrible or we're terrible.
We'll leave that to the end of the series. Because just as a reminder, of course, the loser has to do a forfeit at the end of the series. We hadn't really worked out what the winner was going to get. We thought we might do a trophy, but I'm now kind of worried.
Long way to go.
We haven't even done what the forfeits are going to be yet. That's going to be a future episode where we talk about those. But anyway, we'll jump straight back to our trivia last off. So my not really trivia really, but it's just more news. But it's Firefly. There was a Firefly open world game actually going to happen. It had started to be coded. They released previews. It looked amazing because obviously we'd played Star Trek Online, Star Wars Online, so we thought Firefly, this is going to be amazing. So you need to get a crew, get a ship, build it up, get a crew, and they just pulled it and it all stopped.
Yeah, shame. Big franchise could have been real success.
They said it was because of money. They just couldn't afford the money to actually finish this project. Whether it was something other than that, I don't know. But I just think it's such a shame because we all know that it can be 50 years in the future and it will still be a sore point that Firefly got cancelled.
Has there been any other official Firefly content since 2005?
Not really, not that I'm aware of.
Any comics?
There might have been
graphic novels.
There might have been some comics or graphic novels, but nothing major. There was rumours of bringing it back even within the last couple of years, but the idea was it was going to be a reboot.
Different cast.
I think you don't do that now. I think if anything based on TV shows recently, it's you don't do that. You can do a continuation. Look at Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
Don't reboot it. Just keep it going.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my thing. And to be honest, that leads into sort of our last bit, which is, are there anything that's not been made? You might say Half-Life now, into a game or a game that should be made into a TV show that's not been done. For me, I really want that open world Firefly game to be carried on, picked up by someone. That would be amazing.
Sure, Mr. Jethro wants a Stargate game.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
I'd work with the open world with the gates going to different points around the universe doing missions.
It could work, although I think there are similar concepts with Starfield, and Starfield from the reviews, I don't think I've quite like perfected it. So
Mm.
maybe wait a few years.
Going to be big, wasn't it? They released this stuff for Starfield's the new one, isn't it? The space one with all the good graphics, and it looked immense. But again, if it's a new concept, it was really new because it was like you've got the entire universe to fly around in.
Yeah.
And you've got things like, I mean, go back a little bit. This isn't a TV show, but things like, is it Sea of Souls?
Yeah.
Where you're on like your own pirate ship and you travel around, and that's a really good game. That's a little bit under the radar. Again, I didn't know about it because my ex used to play it. She loved it, and you've got because you can just cruise along and do missions and things. But you've got like the whole seas to fly to like.
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves. Thank you. What did I say?
Sea of Souls. That's the sequel.
Yes. Anyway, with Starfleet, you've got the whole of space.
Yeah.
It's a big place, very big. Imagine the biggest thing you can think of, and then think of it bigger, and it's bigger than that. That was a bit Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, wasn't it? So maybe they've just. I don't know. I forgot my train of thought. Actually, so forget that.
Certainly, the Firefly game. I think. I think we've said that at some point they're going to do a Fortnite movie or a Fortnite TV series.
Yeah. The thing is with Fortnite, they built this lore up over all the updates. Each chapter and each season progresses this story of what the island is and where it's come from, and who's controlling it and so on. And yeah, I think that would work. Would it work as a film or would it work as a TV show?
I didn't know there was a story to Fortnite.
Yeah, it's all in the comics. There's a Fortnite comic. It's got a lot of.
I just shoot the children.
Not that again.
Okay, can we just put a disclaimer out here?
All right, no, sorry. I eliminate the children. There you go. That's proper Fortnite terminology. They don't like the K word.
Sometimes it is projected that to people that young people play the game. So when you say you eliminate the children, what you mean is all those young kids that go on there that are potentially better than us and we get bitter about it. That's why we say it.
And there's a lot of older people playing Fortnite as well.
There is.
It's a game for everybody.
Oh dear. Anyway.
I mean with, just going on to another one, with Half-Life, there has been talks of an adaptation since 2013. Now, in Valve time, that could mean that it's going to come out in 2029 or something.
or in GTA time, it's 5064.
Yeah. But I mean, it's it could work, although it's like the main character of Gordon Freeman is a silent protagonist. He's a blank slate, so as a player, you can sort of like fill in the gaps yourself. That it's not. It doesn't really have a personality, so you fill in that gap, and you can either play him to be like this, like sort of this person who just didn't want to be this hero, but is just filling in the role that is required of him, or you can play him like an absolute sociopath and kill every scientist in Black Mesa.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lovely journey, and I think the only two things that we can really get from this, and I think everyone will agree with me at home, is that one, we need Firefly open world game back, and two, of course, we need a massive big open world Superman game. So apart from those two things, I think that's all we've managed to.
Yeah, I think a Beneath Steel Sky TV series would work quite well. The old Amiga game. They did a recent sequel that came out on Steam and a couple of other platforms called an Apple Arcade as well, called Beyond the Steel Sky, where they updated it. That kind of has got that well-built world and characters that's definitely one that they could do.
Just one last thing as well, because I mean we talked Star Trek and Star Wars online, but there are games Star Trek. I mean Star Wars has done loads, but Star Trek especially lends itself to sort of VR. So there are games where the Star Trek sort of bridge game. What is it? Not Bridge Commander stuff. Anyway,
Fleet Command.
Fleet Command. Where you can stick the VR on and you're on the bridge and you can have other people taking different positions. They've even gone one step further now, and actually it's not a Star Trek licensed event, But there is actually a place you can down in London, and you can actually do a space type
bridge
experience on the bridge of a ship and do missions and take your seats and go on with your team. And a bit like, I suppose it's the new thing for like what Laser Quest was back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, or Laser Tag.
Now much more immersive.
Yeah, an immersive experience where you go in and take those roles. And maybe that's the way that the IPs are going now, you know, using technology. And who knows, what with AI and VR, maybe Star Wars, Star Trek.
Well, it's a way of bringing it together, isn't it? To make it cinematic, like movie style, but still keep the gaming side of it.
Yeah.
So you're in like a 3D, almost 360 world that you're immersed in, and you can play as the character and play through the content.
This one's
as well.
an actual physical set. You know, so there's two ships, and one's got a cargo bay, and they've both got bridges, one's got a ready room. So there are certain, you know, and we've not been, but hey, if you want to send us tickets, we'll
that'd be lovely.
review it for
I'll
you.
review it.
Down in London, it's Star Command or something like
Bridge
that.
Command, isn't it?
Just-
That one.
Just Bridge Commander.
Bridge Commander.
And
And of course, before we go, we ought to mention the talking of video games to TV adaptation. We've got the Fallout TV series coming out in a few weeks on April the 12th, which is based on the old RPG Fallout games from the last few years from Bethesda Studios. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Yeah, because it's a separate story that's set in the same universe as opposed to a straight adaptation of a previous game. So
And again, that plays back to what we were talking about earlier. About is it you have to follow a certain thing? Well, you don't, I suppose.
yeah,
Why not just make it completely different and it's based in?
if you have this world that's built that is just that fertile ground for other stories.
GoldenEye was so successful. Why not have an open world James Bond style adventure? So you're a secret agent working for MI6.
They are working on one called Project 007.
Oh, brilliant!
Which is going to be open world where you go around as James Bond, but it's going to be a stylised James Bond, not a photocopy of any of the ones that have been in it already.
Is that been done by the Hitman developers?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, by the
yes.
same people that did Hitman.
Yeah. So that's presumably you can then go off, pick missions and go off and do them or drive around, whatever.
And with the graphics now and that's coming on, it's going to be good, that is.
Oh, well, you know what a high to end on.
Yeah.
I'd love to have said there was a big Superman one coming, but it's not. I will get Superman into everything, you do realise that.
Keep saying it, and one day it will happen.
That's what usually happens.
We've done that before, quite a few times.
Said things on a podcast and then it's, they've done it, look.
Well, you might have agreed with some of the things we've said. You might not agree. Let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.
If indeed you still are.
If indeed you still are. You can find all of our links on our socials to everything that we do and geekyguys.co.uk. Find those socials if you need to know what they all are. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Catch you later.